up, guys? Welcome back to the Slapshot Sweethearts. I'm Megan, that's Shannon. Let's get down to it. Today with us, we have Chris, who is a DJ for the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, reggae horn hit. What's happening?
Throwing the music there.
That's right. How's it going?
Pretty good. Thanks for joining us. Excited to have you.
Absolutely. It's a great show you guys put together and stoked to be on here. It's an honor. So thank you so much. Also to obviously our TCC folks for doing the introduction, Teal City crew. Big shout out to them for introducing me to you ladies. So I'm stoked to be here. Thank you.
No problem. So starting off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get to be a DJ for like in general and for like this particular niche field of DJing?
Very, very good question. So I've been playing hockey since I was about, well, I'm not going to date myself, but let's just say young. Grew up in Canada, so hockey kind of has been in my blood for a long time. Again, grew up a Montreal Canadiens fan. Sorry for some of those folks who aren't Habs fans. Hint, hint.
Well, go Boston.
So yeah, I've been playing for a long time, and then it's kind of interesting because when the Sharks came into San Jose, I was playing for the Santa Clara Blackhawks, which was a junior team, and we were going up against the junior Sharks. And in one of the new arenas, they had built in a pretty solid sound system. And one of the guys before the game had came to me and said, "Do you guys want music for your warm-ups?" And I was like, that's a new concept. We never really did that in juniors prior. So that kind of sparked like, hey, this is kind of neat. Music during a hockey game. Go figure. And I had actually DJ'd at an ice skating rink here locally on like, Friday, Saturday nights. I was an employee of the company. So that kind of sparked like the whole DJing thing. And then I kind of grew into it. So I started doing college radio. I was up at Concordia University in Montreal, and I had a radio show there. Then from there, got into DJing for clubs, and then I started playing hockey for San Jose State University in 1999. And there was two teams. There was the state A team and B team, and the B team allowed to have two provisional players, so you didn't have to be a student, right? So I would actually do the music for our A team. So they played on Friday nights. We played on Saturdays. So I started DJing for them, did that for 4 seasons. And after I was done DJing for them, I had actually submitted my resume and a letter of recommendation from the hockey club president to every NHL team. So wrapped up nicely, envelope, whole 9 yards. Every team, including the Sharks, rejected me. So it's kind of funny.
Good way to start.
I know, right? So a little discouraged. I just, kind of said, forget it. Got out of DJing all in all, still played hockey. And then ironically, I kind of bumped into an old colleague of mine who worked for Live 105, which is a big radio station out here in San Francisco, Rafi Nalvarian. And Rafi had started, him and a partner started a company called Sound in Motion. So when Sound in Motion was formed, they're huge Sharks fans, and they started doing music for the San Francisco 49ers. Long story short, I bump into Rafi at a sushi restaurant, out of all places. He comments on a shirt because I'm wearing a Roots Canada shirt, and he goes, "Hey man,"
Yes.
He goes, "Hey, cool shirt." And I'm like, "Rafi, you don't recognize me. It's been about 15 years, but what's happening?" We start talking, and he mentions, I tell him about the San Jose State DJing thing, and then he goes, "Hey, do you want to come do it for the Sharks?" And my jaw just about hit the floor. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, he said, "You want to come do it?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, first to start you off with the Barracuda." So I did one San Jose Barracuda game, and then kicked right into the Sharks like immediately. And my first game was the home opener of 2016 against the Nashville Predators. And I mean, if you want to talk about nerves, like you're trying to push buttons on keyboards and mice, and you can't do that when your hands are shaking. So yeah, I was like just beyond thrilled when they asked. They said they basically just needed staffing, right? Because you have so many games between the Barracudas and Sharks, and then they're also trying to run a full-time DJ business plus the San Francisco 49ers. So it's like they just needed folks and right place, right time, you know?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I think that's always how it works out.
I was going to say, one of my questions was like, how do you even apply for that job? So when you did it and you sent it to all 30 teams, like, who do you even send that to? Like, there's no point of contact. It's like applying for a mascot
At front
job.
office, I want to DJ. Like,
that's pretty much it. It was like just shooting. I mean, you're shooting blanks, right? You're going for it. You know, and this is back in the mid 2000s, so LinkedIn wasn't around, you know, and I feel like, I mean, I didn't really know anybody in the industry, especially in the NHL, and I didn't really utilize a lot of sources. I just said, let me just send this letter out. You know, I attentioned it to game operations, the chance there, or just entertainment / game operations. Fired it back, and, you know, I got these nice letters. I still have a handful of them that say, you know, thank you for applying or your interest with our organization. Unfortunately, you know, we don't need someone at the time. And I don't think the in-game DJs were really a huge thing back then. I mean, I know the Sharks, for example, like for a few seasons, they basically just had someone who was more their sound engineer doing the music. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you know, it's kind of it's kind of one of those things where it's like, was I even applying for the right position? I don't even know.
So what is it, you know, prior to COVID-19, what did like a start to game, end to game look like for you in terms of your responsibilities? Or like, were you working with sound engineers? You know, like they don't have music playing for the 20 minutes when, you know, the players are playing unless somebody scores. So, you know, what are your responsibilities there for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So everything besides the organ you hear in the arena is pretty much controlled. I have basically 2 laptops. So when you're talking about a routine start to finish, so I get there roughly about 3 hours before puck drop. We have 2 laptops that we run off of into a sound mixer. And what I'll do is go through, you know, get the laptops fired up, get the program I use Sound Sports Pro. It's a program that we're using, that most of the DJs in the NHL are using. So I'll set up the program, test out the sound in the arena, just make sure, you know, levels are good. I do work.
I'm like picturing that, like just testing out music while no one's there in the arena.
You should
like this big, like.
We've never played Baby Shark so loud. No, I'm just kidding. God, I hate that song.
I'm traumatized living in DC with the Nationals.
Oh, my best friend is on the national tour of Baby Shark the musical. I feel that. Trust me.
Ouch. I'm sorry. Tell them I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we'll set up sound. Once the arena sound is all checked in, we'll do a rehearsal. So we'll run through the pregame show, which is, you know, I don't know if most teams do this, but we do what's called House to Black, where we'll have walk-in music playing. It's just kind of underneath, you know, music. And then what we'll do is when the fans are in the stands, we'll just dip all the lights in the arena, so it goes pitch black. So what I do is I have a sound effects key that actually, like, we have to time, everything is live produced, so we have to time when we hit play on our laptops, you know, to make sure that timing affects with the set, with the lighting. And then they'll run a production video, which all the music and all that, anything that's pre-produced is all done through the in-house Sharks Media, which those guys are amazing, by the way. They'll run that, and then when the video ends, that's when I hit another like sound effects key, but everything has to be timed when the players are coming out of the locker room. So, you know, we'll run through that rehearsal basically just as if we're doing it live with the fans in the stands. So once we run through rehearsal, then I have generally about 2 hours of downtime until the whole show starts. And I use about an hour of it to just kind of get my head together. Like, okay, let me pace out what type of songs I'm going to have in like my queue area, which is basically one screen where I go to, where I have like, I mean, I have a song bank of 1,000 some odd songs, 2,000 some odd songs, or even more probably, but I'll plan out which songs that I'm going to be piecing together and how I want the night to kind of sound. So it's interesting because a lot of people are like, I didn't even know there was such thing as an in-game DJ and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, there is someone like me who is, you know, like knowledgeable of the game and can figure out how the game's going to sound in advance and how it's going to play out. Like, you're going to play a certain song when an offside hits. You're going to, you know, if there's a fight that's going to get going, boom, you got your fight stuff ready to roll. Like, and it's not,
you're curating the entire vibe of this game.
Yeah.
And so you have to continually update that music list too. Like, you know, somebody wins a Grammy or whatever, a new song gets popular, you have to update that all the time, not in the game.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have a thing called hashtag tank tunes that we run on Twitter during the game. So, roughly around the beginning of the second period, we'll say tonight's music's provided by Sound and Motion. Hashtag them at tank tunes and your song might be played. So we're also taking song requests at the same time. Whether we play them, it's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I mean, this is like, it's fully live, and it's exciting. I think for the fans, it really helps a lot when you have DJs who understand the game and the flow of the game, and you can pace out the sound, because you'd be surprised like how effective in-game music actually is. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, you're totally right. We have to stay updated. You got to stay fresh with the new stuff, but you know what? The old stuff works so well.
Always have the reliable ones.
Exactly. You have your go-tos, Welcome to the Jungle, Guns N' Roses, Machine Head by Bush, then Turn Down for What by Little John. You can never go wrong with that,
Always an option.
Always an option. You want to have those in the bank for sure. But the newer stuff, I got to say, the newer stuff is a little harder to play for hockey games because a lot of it is really slow. So it's been a bit of a challenge, but yeah, it's trying to stay on top of things is for sure. For sure.
So that was like your like day-to-day, like pre-COVID. You guys were out of your arena for almost a year because you guys didn't go back until later in the process due to that arena being shut down. Yeah. Like, what is the difference now? Like walking in, is it just dead, or like what's the feeling there? Yeah, it is a trip. And you mentioned 1 year, and exactly. So my last game in the tank with a crowd there was March 6th against Pittsburgh, I believe it was. So I went back exactly a year later. So March 6th was my first time back in the arena. So I'm one of the 3 DJs for the Sharks. There's also Andrew Rivas, who DJs a lot for the Santa Cruz Warriors, the Golden State Warriors farm team. And then Rafi, who's, one of our owners as well, and who's a huge hockey nut. So we split the time prior to this year, the past 3. So this is my 5th season now with the Sharks. Prior to that, I was mostly the full-time DJ. Just things have changed, day jobs and stuff like that, where it interferes with the schedule. It's kind of hard to work a day job when you're at a tech company, for example, and it's hard to bail out sometimes. But going back to your question, sorry, totally like ADD moment. When you walking into the arena now, like, you used to get those nerves before and it was exciting because I feel like you're seeing the crowd and you're getting ideas. Like when I would have some downtime in between, like what we call walk-in periods, when the fans start coming into the arena, I would walk the arena a handful of times and just start talking to people, hey, I'm DJing tonight. What are you guys in the mood for? How do you think tonight's game's going to go? And now it's like, we don't even really do rehearsals anymore because we're so used to the game ops now. It's so dialed in. And there's not as much of a beginning as there was before, as far as like pre-production show. So it's really weird. I mean, you have to get tested. So Sharks have been really good about testing people. So that's the first thing, right? The second, you have to wait 10 minutes until you get cleared or not. And if you don't get cleared to go, if you end up testing positive, then, we have to call in the last minute DJ backup. So once you get into the arena, it's like, it's a ghost town. I mean, there's hardly anybody in there. We still have ushers, that are still there, just kind of watching the doors, making sure nobody snuck through, I guess, and everybody has their credentials. But right now, you're mostly seeing media, and we're all kind of sitting relatively in the same area. So the broadcasters are literally right next to me, which is new this year. And then the actual like in game, when you're DJing and when you're watching the game, it's just crazy because it's so silent. So first of all, the music is amplified so loud because there's no crowd sound to drown that out, but now we're playing music more to cater towards the players versus before where we were catering mostly towards the fans. So like when you say like now we're catering towards the players, like what is like changing there about like your decision making of what you're putting out there?
hip hop.
Got it.
Just get the hip. Like we've had to update our hip hop library like massively because a majority of the players, I would say it's kind of an interesting balance because of the European influence. Like Carlson, for example, completely hates hip hop, but loves EDM, right? Timo Meyer, same thing. Meyer's kind of the same on the same page, but like when Jumbo was there, and we have Marlowe back, but like some of the older guys, when it was an older team, they were more into like Rush and Tragically Hip, more like the Canadian bands and the old school rock bands. So it's like you still could get a couple of those songs in now, but it's so EDM and hip hop heavy, like just drives me nuts. Sorry.
It doesn't give you a lot of creative, faculties there when you're just hitting play on whatever, basically Spotify EDM playlist they were listening to in their pregame.
Yeah, and you're spot on. So we're actually we're connected to Timo Meyer's Spotify playlist. So we're grabbing a bunch of songs off of his stuff. And you're right, like the vibe. It's hard because when there's so many big moments in hockey that happens, whether it's a fight, a killer save, a check into the boards, whatever it may be, like you play a song where the crowd's going to react. That's going to amplify the crowd and get them hyped up. You know what I mean? And the players, you don't really, even if you play a big hype song, you don't really get a reaction from them. They're so in the zone. So it's a really, really odd vibe. And then, yeah, every once in a while you'll see Kane kind of do a little bit of a head nod. Burns every once in a while. Yeah.
So in terms of, you had mentioned it prior that you circulate between 3 DJs. Do you fluctuate between going to other teams? Do you do the Barracuda still, or do you do any other teams on the West Coast that maybe I have never been to California, so forgive me for not knowing the geographics, but like any of the other ones near San Jose?
San Jose is the only one. We are LA and Anaheim are down south, and even their DJs don't rotate between each other. But I do rotate between the Barracudas and the Sharks since it's the same organization. It works out pretty well. The show is a little bit different. Barracudas have just different sound effects for certain things, like their goal horn and after goal announcements and stuff like that. So it is fun bouncing back and forth. You get to see a lot of upcoming talent that are coming from the Barracudas that are going to jump into the Sharks, or you're seeing guys from the Sharks go down into the Barracudas as well because they fluctuate from both.
So, you mentioned the Anaheim and LA DJs as well. Obviously there are only 31 of them. Do you guys know each other? Like, is it like, do you communicate with one another too? That's
a good question. We do. We actually have a Facebook group called Pro Sports DJs.
No way.
And it's a private group for the most part. So there's one guy, his name's Sean Pavelski. He's the DJ for the Tampa Bay Bolts. And he created that group, and he also created a webpage as well. So what we do is we share like playlists. We'll share, different strategies. DJ Joe Green from the Vegas Knights will harass us a lot for some reason. He has a thing for San Jose. I don't know what his deal is, but so yeah, we all talk to each other. When the NHL All-Star Game came to San Jose a couple of years ago, one of the biggest things was like even the Sharks didn't know who the DJ was going to be. We've always assumed that it was going to be the in-house DJ because that's generally how it's worked before. Steve Maroney, who was the entertainment director at the time of the Sharks in 2018, he's also the entertainment director for Team Canada. Go figure, right? Like the guy's awesome. He was like, I don't know if you're DJing or not. I thought for sure I was going to be a shoo-in because I've been with the team for 3 seasons now, dialed in as far as music's concerned. I know when to hit everything. And that was the year they brought the Vegas DJ in because they liked his like mixture of EDM and hip hop, and they wanted to go that route. And I was like, so I was harassing him later. I was like, dude, you can't come into my house. So yeah, we all talk to each other, have a good time. A few of us have actually met in person, even though we're across. So last year, right before COVID hit, I was in Montreal and I got to meet Vincent, who's the DJ for the Montreal Canadiens. So got to tour like the back end and see what they do. It was pretty neat. And he was introducing me as the DJ from the Sharks with all the team, but to be in like that Montreal building and, I was a kid growing up watching them. So it was like awesome. And I was like, Vincent, we've always been talking through our Facebook group and, stuff like that. So when I actually got a chance to go there, it was like, that was awesome. It was a good experience. So it's nice having that connection with the other DJs, and you kind of learn from each other. And we also actually even keep in touch with the DJs from the NBA and the NFL. So we're all kind of on this community page, which is really neat. I think there's like 290 of us or something like that. It's crazy.
That's awesome. So that sounds like a pretty cool experience. Like, what are the other like major experiences that are like your top ones that you've gotten to do because of this job?
Well, obviously doing fun, great shows like this. I think, it's interesting because in-game DJs aren't recognized really by like media sources, for example, like news. I mean, I've met a few news folks in the past who've kind of done like mini interviews with me. As far as like gigs are concerned, I've done a few like things locally. I've had a handful of like communities that are like small towns around here that do like, they're big. I'll give you an example, like Oktoberfest, for example. So like the city of San Jose will do Oktoberfest and they'll have a block party type of thing. So I've done a bunch of emceeing stuff and I play music at the same time. Which has been fun. And, the stuff I do with the Sharks is my only DJing gig. So I don't do clubs anymore and I don't do like weddings or anything like that. It's specifically Sharks. And yeah, I mean, there's the 49ers is really hands-on for the owners. That's their baby. So I don't think I'll be doing the 49ers anytime soon. And hockey's my sport. So, there is that slight possibility of maybe the Olympics. It just depends on how Steve is feeling.
That'd be so cool.
That would be awesome. Yeah, that was my hope for 2018. I thought, or was it 26? When was the last Olympics? 2018.
2018 was winter.
Yeah, 2018. So I thought there was going to be a possibility of going then, but because Steve Maroney, he's not only is he the Sharks director, but the Olympic committee. So I'm like, dude, that's a shoo-in. You got to take me over there. And he's like, because of budget, they had to get somebody local in Korea. So I was like, okay, I got it, but it would have been fun.
Totally.
Yeah. But
so like, those are all pretty cool things you can do. What would you say is like the most stressful part of the job then?
Oh God.
On the other side.
The timing. I mean, everything is live, right? So like, next time, once COVID ends and everybody can go back into the arena, like I always encourage people, listen to the music and listen to everything because it's 100% live. Like if the keyboard, if the mouse doesn't click right, like especially when it comes to the pregame production where everything is timed with lighting and the timing when the players have to come out of the Sharks' head, like all that has to be like on the button. You know what I mean? And I think now for me, it's become natural, like being there for 5 years. I know exactly when things are going to go. I'm so dialed. Like I probably have done, I'm going to say I've probably DJed about 300 games, I think, under my belt between Sharks and Barracuda, if not more. So I've gotten so like trained to know timing, but you still have that nerve where it's like, oh my God, what happens if can you imagine if the song doesn't play when the,
or like technology can break and it can be not your fault at all, but it's still your head.
Yeah.
Any given time. It's happened.
Wait, so are you in charge of like the goal buzzer?
That's a great question. Most arenas have actual horns. So like, for example, the Sharks have a foghorn and this thing is massive. It's like, I mean, it's probably like the size of me. I'm 6 foot tall. So it's like, it's this huge horn. So that goes off. So in the past, what we've done is the horn sequence and then the goal song. It used to go like the sound effects guys who were up in the rafters would hit the goal horn because they have to fire it off from there. So they would hit it and then I would play the goal song, the celebration song. And then we've now got it timed to where the horn goes off. And once it triggers, it also triggers the actual goal song. So the goal song responsibility is off me now, which is another nerve-wracking part. But
I was gonna say, it must be stressful being the person who has to like click the buzzer of being like a goal. Like, what if you thought it was and it wasn't? Like, I feel like I would be freaked out.
It's happened before. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, I mean, especially Barracuda games recently, there is more room for error because they're playing at Sharks Ice, which is where the Sharks practice, in the small arena. And there's no buzzers there, so 100% of the sound effects are coming from me. and the buttons on my keyboard where things are cued at. So like I'll hit the goal horn on one finger and then bam, hit the goal song on the other, but they're right next to each other. So you could accidentally, I mean, if you're not paying attention, you could accidentally hit the goal song instead of the horn. So yeah, it's there's a lot of moments. You just have to really be, on the game. And you were mentioning like, if something goes wrong, like technology, interesting thing is I think it was my second or third game in back in 2016, someone had gotten like, I think it was like a tying goal or a winning goal. And someone got excited where they ran over the fiber wire that controls all of the audio in the arena. So they cut the fiber wires. And so that killed all the sound in the arena. So mics, referee microphones, gone. Announcer's microphone, gone. My stuff, gone. Dead silent. So it was just like, and then you have 17,500 fans who were just, they started singing, they started making noise when the Sharks scored. Like you'd hear people go honk, 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 So it was actually entertaining. I loved it. I had a good time.
Morale boost there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. It was a lot of fun. But you're right. There are a lot of things that can go wrong, but yeah, it's pretty dialed in at the most part right now. So I just miss the fans the most. That's really like what it dials down to. That's what makes our job so fun. Now it's more like we're just catering to the players. The players don't really care all that much. So it's just really hoping COVID ends soon.
Speaking of the players, Sharks not doing too hot in the standings. You're a hockey guy. Like, what's your take on this right now?
It's rough. It's definitely rough to watch. I feel like, my perspective, especially on the game itself, and I think the morale on the team seems low to me. And I think that's where they're lacking. I think ever since Pavelski left, there was big shoes to fill for one, and the morale left. And now with Jumbo being gone, I actually got a chance to meet him in person 2 years ago when DeBoer was on our team still. Was it 2 or 3 years ago? It was 2 years ago, I think it was. Anyhow, so I got a chance to meet Jumbo, and like super nice guy. You know what I mean? And he's very boisterous. So, Pavelski was also really nice and boisterous and like a fun guy, but serious at the times as well. So like you have these two key elements that are just super fun guys that are now gone, and hard to say, I feel like watching some of the games, I feel like they're just not a physical team. Yes, they're kind of quick, and they do have some speed, and they have some good, young legs, but I don't think they're just clicking as far as the physical team is concerned. They're not playing a good physical game, and almost leaving the goalies out to dry. A lot of people are commenting with Karlsson, especially a lot of Sharks fans are on the fence about Karlsson. I mean, in my opinion, he's a great player. I think, he still has some skill, but there's something missing somewhere. And I don't know if it's not having the fans in the arena. I don't know if it's the team morale. It's been rough watching the games. They're just leaving Jones and Dubnyk out to dry. I mean, Dubnyk's a good goalie. Jones is a good goalie, but I think my understanding from what I've heard locally is that they're trying to rebuild. And I said, well, if you're, the Barracudas have a solid organization, but a lot of small players. And I'm looking at these guys, I'm like, you have guys in the East Coast, for example, that are big boys and they're fast, and they're skilled. So it's like, I just kind of look at the team and go, you got to my opinion that I think the Sharks need to rebuild with big, strong players and that are overall equipped, so.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, that even though the league is going more towards skill players, it's kind of backtracking a bit from that argument, just because teams are making sure that they do have that enforcer on the ice still. And I wasn't seeing that earlier in the season, but it's becoming really prevalent now, especially going toward the trade deadline, that's where teams are kind of bolstering. They're not really bolstering on the skill side. So
yeah. What's so curious to hear your take on the Sharks. What's some honest feedback, and I'm open for brutality.
Well, you'll be sad to hear that Megan is a Vegas Golden Knights fan. So
hey, Marc-Andre Fleury is my guy. Like, I can't diss it.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of the Sharks, I think that, they do need to go into a rebuild. There's multiple established teams over there on the West Coast that they're not going to be able to compete with until they do start, rebolstering. And I was surprised. I thought the Wild were going to be like nice middle tier, lower tier, and they're, becoming a surprise team now. So when there are surprise teams that you have to contend with as well, there's nothing for you to do. I would, start to sell those players that they do have some left in the tank, like Carlson, before they lose their value.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the Sharks had that. They had that. I felt like they had that Stanley Cup team back in 2017. Especially those two playoff eras where we went against the Knights. It's like they looked strong, and whatever was working then, I hope they go back to it. I mean, I'm still going to pull for them. Either way. Been a fan of theirs.
You don't have a choice. You got
to. Touche. Yeah, true. I'd really like to see some movement. I think that there might be some players that might be fatigued on the team that maybe they just, like Pavelski when he went to Dallas, right? It was a new shot for him. I mean, he was with a whole new group. Thornton, like I couldn't be more thrilled for him. Now he's on a strong. I mean, the Leafs look strong this year, and he's there, and he's contributing and he's doing good, and he's one of my favorite players. Actually, I think Thornton's probably like my favorite player of all time. I think he's just a wonderful guy in general, but also a really smart hockey player. And I'm happy to see him doing well with the Leafs. So I think the Sharks need that same thing. They need to it's just restructure time, figure out who in the Barracuda system are good, get the scouts going overseas if needed. But I think something's coming soon. I'm excited to see the future, and we're gonna take it on the chin this year. But we'll, you never know. St. Louis, look at St. Louis when they won the Cup.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Exactly. Where did they come from?
I don't know. It was
like
a horrible Game 7 evening.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
You touched on Canada there. I know you're from Canada. What's your take on the North Division right now?
I love it. I mean, I just wish we had TSN down here in the States. It'd be great to watch all the games. But I've managed to follow, at least Toronto, Montreal. So I was born in Toronto, but grew up in Montreal. So I only lived in Toronto for 5 years and then went over to Montreal. And my family still lives out there. So I go back there, every year. I was really hoping that the Habs were going to pull through this year because out of, any organizations up in the North, like I feel like the Habs just need their history back. They're so depth with, Stanley Cups when it's just been so long. And the fans in Montreal are just, I hear it. They're just disappointed. It's just like what I hear in San Jose. They're just so disappointed year after year after year. And like Carey Price, he's probably the best goalie around. He deserves a Stanley Cup, So I've been trying to pull for Montreal, and I think Toronto, I would be stoked if they end up going to the Stanley Cup. I'd be really happy for Thornton. And again, with being a Leaf born, I know that's like, how can you be a Leaf fan and a Montreal fan? It doesn't make sense. But I think
story of my life. How am I any fans?
I think there's going to be a lot of. I think there's going to be I mean, in my opinion, I think North is the league to watch right now. My opinion. Good teams everywhere.
Hot take.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Vegas is your team, huh?
Well, Vegas is like one of my teams. Like I'm a Penguins fan through and through. Like those are my boys. But I like kind of like started following Vegas when Fleury obviously went over there.
Yeah.
But Pens are my ride or dies.
I have respect for Vegas. Even though I take heat from the Vegas DJ all the time, and he harasses me on Twitter. I think they're a solid organization. They've proved it. They're the type of team, like I said, that plays physical. They're fast. They're big guys. You know what I mean? They play a smart game. And with Fleury, I mean, he's from the same area where my family is in Quebec, just outside of Pierrefonds, which is in the West Island of Montreal. And I know a handful of people that are buddies with him, and he's a solid dude as well. Just a good person in general. So it's like good for him. I'm glad he was able to revamp himself in Vegas and be the housekeeper.
Yeah. I just wanted him to get a cup and bring it home to him.
That would be nice. Yeah. And then he could retire happy, and I'm sure he'll call it a day, but yeah, Vegas was definitely when that whole Pavelski incident happened, when Sharks played Vegas in the playoffs. I don't know if you have time, but if you want to hear a crazy story about that, like that whole comeback and how loud, like, I don't think when you watch it on TV or YouTube videos, how loud it was in there. Like, those videos don't do any justice. When you were actually in the arena, out of all of my games I've DJed there, I've never felt the ground actually shake at the arena. Like, it was chaos in there when I think it was Couture who scored the tying goal, right? So it was like LeBanc, Couture, and then, or no, LeBanc, I can't remember. No, Hurdle. It was Hurdle, Carlson first, Hurdle, Couture, and then LeBanc, I think, for the winner. Like, it was like when they scored the first one, there's hope. The second one, people in the stands were just going ballistic. Third one, people going nuts. And then when LeBanc scored that, the fourth goal, I mean, it was like chaos in there. I thought the roof was going to fall down. It was so loud. And from the behind the scenes perspective, when you're trying to control sound and you can't hear anything, so you can't time the goal announcements, there's a thing at the end that's called an orchestra hit, right? So they'll say goal scored by number 39 Logan Couture, and you hit a sound button that goes dun dun. I couldn't even hear the announcement. Like, it was loud in there forever. And that was like, if you were to ask me what was definitely the highlight game, that one for sure. And especially from a DJ's perspective, like, you're full throttling the music the entire time, and the crowd is feeding off of it, which was awesome. So, and I also dropped my laptop at the same time when they scored the fourth goal, like swan dive off the DJ table, 6 foot swan dive, this little aluminum Mac Air. But
wow, that sounds
amazing.
Yeah, it was fun. It's definitely a fun gig.
For sure. Yeah, I wish I were an NHL DJ.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like that'd be such a fun environment to be in.
It's interesting, once people kind of catch on. I think there's other teams, for example, I know Vegas with Joe Green, like, they'll have him out in the stands and he has like a full DJ rig with turntables and the whole 9 yards. And we've done that a few times during the playoffs. Like, we had DJ Amy Robbins, who DJs the women's USA soccer team. So she does all of those games. She's done a handful of NFL games. She came in 2018 and did the Sharks, like the warm-up stuff, like all the mixes, because she mixes. So it was pretty crazy having an actual DJ there. But the San Jose fans are a completely different crowd. They're classic rock. There's a handful of folks that like Bay Area rap. So like Too Short and E40 and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, you can't really play a lot of that in the arena. So it's a unique crowd. So, yeah, I'm not sure how the future is going to go once fans come back and how the sound is going to be in the arena. But you're going to start seeing a lot of hip hop stuff throughout the league right now.
Not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Well, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate chatting with you. This has been awesome, both learning more about NHL DJs and, helping others learn more about the sound engineering that goes into a given NHL game. Tell our viewers where they can find you on social media.
Social media. So my Instagram page is SJ Hockey DJ, and then same thing on Twitter at SJ Hockey DJ. I can't exactly steal the Sharks DJ name, so I just do that, especially because I do both for the Barracudas and Sharks. So at SJ Hockey DJ on Twitter. I'm trying to get my Twitter page a little bit more lively. I've kind of neglected it for a while, so definitely would love to get some more followers, get some more interaction going. And if you ladies have any tips for me on how I can better my Twitter page, please let me know.
Yeah,
we'll tag you when this is
we will keep tagging you. We will do whatever, and please go follow so now he can grow his page. And thank you again for coming on, and we look forward to chatting with you more. Thank you very much. Stay safe, everybody, and hopefully we'll see everybody back in the arena at some point soon. And pay attention to the music next time you're in the arena. There is somebody curating it live right there on the spot, going with the flow of the game. It's not just click click click. It's totally
flow of the game. So it'd be, throw some props out when you can on Twitter to your local NHL DJ.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
Awesome.
you.